Welcome, dear viewers, to our channel, where every story has a secret and every mystery has meaning. We take you beyond the headlines and deep into the truth that time has buried. Get ready to see the world like never before. Now, we explain the glory and collapse of the Roman Empire. The story of the Roman Empire is one of the most extraordinary tales in human history, a chronicle of ambition, conquest, innovation, and eventual decline. From its modest beginnings as a small settlement along the banks of the river Tiber to becoming the mightiest empire the world had ever seen, Rome's journey reflects the evolution of civilization itself. The foundations of Roman greatness were laid through centuries of struggle, adaptation, and the relentless pursuit of power and stability. The early Romans, a mix of Latin, Sabine, and Etruscan peoples, transformed a humble kingdom into a republic that would shape the destiny of Europe, North Africa, and the Near East. This transformation was neither sudden nor accidental. It was built upon discipline, political ingenuity, and a cultural belief in the superiority of Roman values. The traditional story of Rome's founding begins in legend. According to myth, the city was founded in 753 BCE by Romulus, who, after slaying his twin brother Remus, established the settlement that would bear his name. Whether or not this tale holds truth, archaeological evidence suggests that a small cluster of villages existed on the Palatine Hill around that time. Rome's early kings ruled over a society of farmers and warriors, where religion, family, and loyalty to the state were paramount. The monarchy ended in 509 BCE, when the Romans overthrew their Etruscan king, Tarquin the Proud, and established the Roman Republic. This monumental shift marked the beginning of Rome's experiment with a mixed form of government, part democracy, part aristocracy, and part oligarchy, that would become one of the most influential political systems in history. In the Republic, power was distributed among different institutions to prevent tyranny. Two consuls, elected annually, held executive authority, while the Senate, composed mainly of patricians or aristocrats, advised them and shaped foreign and domestic policy. The plebeians, or common citizens, fought for political equality and gradually gained rights through the establishment of the tribune of the plebs, an office empowered to protect their interests. This constant tension between patricians and plebeians produced a dynamic and resilient society, capable of adaptation and reform. Rome's legal and political structures evolved over time, codified in the 12 Tables, which laid the foundation for Western legal systems centuries later. Rome's early strength lay in its military organization and discipline. The Roman legions became the backbone of its expansion, built on loyalty, rigorous training, and a strict hierarchy. Each legionnaire was not only a soldier, but also a builder, engineer, and citizen soldier, whose sense of duty to Rome was unparalleled. As the Republic expanded, it absorbed neighboring territories through conquest and alliances. The Italian peninsula was gradually unified under Roman rule by the early 3rd century BCE. But this success brought Rome into conflict with other powerful states, most notably Carthage. The Punic Wars between Rome and Carthage would define the Republic's rise to global prominence. The First Punic War, 624 to 241 BCE, was primarily a naval conflict over control of Sicily. Despite initial disadvantages at sea, the Romans adapted rapidly, constructing fleets and developing naval tactics such as the corvus, a boarding device that turned sea battles into hand-to-hand combat where Roman discipline excelled. The war ended with Rome's victory, marking its first overseas province. The Second Punic War, 218 to 201 BCE, would become one of the most dramatic military struggles in history. Carthaginian general Hannibal famously crossed the Alps with elephants to invade Italy, defeating Roman armies at Trebia, Lake Trasimene, and Cannae. Yet Rome's resilience proved unbreakable. The Roman state mobilized its vast manpower and resources, refusing to surrender even after devastating losses. Eventually, the brilliant general Scipio Africanus counterattacked in North Africa, defeating Hannibal at the Battle of Zama. This victory marked the beginning of Rome's dominance in the Mediterranean. The destruction of Carthage in the Third Punic War, 149 to 146 BCE, symbolized the Republic's supremacy. At the same time, Rome crushed the Greek city-states, incorporating Greece into its sphere of influence. Yet with expansion came internal turmoil. Wealth from conquered territories flowed into Rome, enriching the elite while impoverishing the lower classes. The gap between rich and poor widened dramatically, and corruption spread within the Senate. The influx of slaves from conquered lands displaced small farmers who lost their livelihoods and crowded into Rome, forming an urban poor dependent on state handouts. This growing inequality eroded the traditional Roman values of duty, discipline, and simplicity that had once defined the Republic. The late Republic became a battleground of political factions, reformers, and ambitious generals. Figures like Tiberius and Gaius Gracchus attempted land reforms to help the poor, but were met with violent resistance from the Senate, setting a precedent for bloodshed in politics. As the century progressed, powerful generals such as Marius, Sulla, Pompey, and Julius Caesar emerged using their armies to seize political control. Marius's reforms allowed landless citizens to join the army, creating professional soldiers more loyal to their commanders than to the Republic itself. Sulla's dictatorship demonstrated how easily the Roman constitution could be manipulated under the guise of restoring order. The Republic's institutions began to crumble under the weight of civil wars, personal ambitions, and social inequality. Julius Caesar's rise marked the culmination of these tensions. A brilliant military commander, Caesar expanded Rome's territories through his conquest of Gaul, showcasing Roman efficiency and ruthlessness. His commentaries, De Bello Gallico, celebrated the discipline and courage of the Roman legions while emphasizing his own strategic genius. However, his growing power alarmed the Senate. In 49 BCE, when ordered to disband his army, Caesar famously crossed the Rubicon River, an act of rebellion that sparked civil war. After defeating Pompey and his supporters, Caesar became dictator for life, effectively ending the Republic. His assassination in 44 BCE by senators who feared tyranny only plunged Rome into further chaos. The conspirators claimed to defend liberty, but their actions unleashed another cycle of civil wars. Out of this turmoil emerged a new leader, Octavian, later known as Augustus, Caesar's adopted son and heir. Through political cunning and military strength, he defeated his rivals, including Mark Antony and Cleopatra, consolidating power under his rule. In 27 BCE, he proclaimed the restoration of the Republic, but in truth, he established the foundations of imperial autocracy. The Senate granted him the title Augustus, and the Roman Empire was born. This was the beginning of the Pax Romana, a period of relative peace and prosperity that lasted for over 2 centuries. Augustus's rule marked the transformation of Rome from a war-torn republic into a stable, centralized empire.
Under Augustus, Rome flourished. Administrative reforms reorganized the provinces, ensuring efficiency and reducing corruption. The Roman legions maintained order along the frontiers, securing the empire's vast territories from Britain to Egypt. Roads, aqueducts, and public buildings symbolized Roman engineering brilliance. The city of Rome itself was transformed into a metropolis of marble and grandeur. Literature and art thrived under imperial patronage. Poets like Virgil, Horace, and Ovid celebrated Rome's destiny and Augustus' leadership, creating a cultural identity rooted in both tradition and divine providence. The emperor's moral and religious reforms sought to revive ancient Roman virtues, emphasizing family, loyalty, and duty to the state. The Pax Romana was not merely a time of peace. It was an era of integration and innovation. The empire's network of roads and ports facilitated trade, communication, and cultural exchange across continents. Roman law became the unifying framework of governance, ensuring justice and stability. Latin spread as the language of administration and culture, laying the foundation for future European languages. The Roman economy thrived on agriculture, trade, and taxation, while cities across the empire became centers of commerce and culture. Architecture reached new heights with the construction of amphitheaters, temples, and baths, reflecting both Roman power and the desire for public entertainment and civic life. Yet, beneath this golden age, seeds of future instability were already taking root. The concentration of power in the emperor's hands created a system that depended heavily on the personality and competence of each ruler. Succession crises, corruption, and military ambition would eventually undermine the stability Augustus had built. But for now, Rome stood unrivaled, the center of a world that stretched from the Atlantic to the Euphrates. To its citizens, it seemed that Rome's glory would last forever. The first century of imperial rule was marked by both greatness and turmoil. After Augustus's death, the Julio-Claudian dynasty continued his legacy, though not without scandal and tyranny. Emperors like Tiberius, Caligula, Claudius, and Nero showcased the fragile nature of absolute power. Tiberius maintained stability but grew increasingly paranoid. Caligula's eccentricities and cruelty shocked the empire. Claudius, despite his physical impairments, proved an able administrator, expanding the empire into Britain. Nero's reign, however, descended into chaos, marked by extravagance, persecution, and rebellion. His death in 68 CE ended the dynasty and ushered in a year of civil war, after which Vespasian emerged victorious, founding the Flavian dynasty. The Flavian emperors, particularly Vespasian and his son Titus, restored order and rebuilt Rome after the Great Fire and the chaos of Nero's rule. The construction of the Colosseum, one of the most iconic symbols of Roman architecture, demonstrated the empire's resilience and grandeur. The subsequent period, known as the era of the Five Good Emperors, Nerva, Trajan, Hadrian, Antoninus Pius, and Marcus Aurelius, represented the pinnacle of Roman civilization. These emperors governed with wisdom, justice, and moderation, expanding the empire to its greatest territorial extent under Trajan and consolidating its borders under Hadrian. Roman law, administration, and culture reached unmatched level of sophistication. The frontiers were fortified, cities flourished, and the provinces were integrated into a cohesive imperial system. Rome in this era was a marvel of urban planning and infrastructure. The population of the capital city may have reached over 1 million inhabitants, a feat unmatched until the modern age. Aqueducts supplied fresh water, while public baths, theaters, and forums served as social and cultural centers. The economy thrived on a complex system of trade routes connecting the empire's farthest provinces. Goods such as Egyptian grain, African ivory, Arabian spices, and Chinese silk flowed into Roman markets. The coinage system facilitated commerce, and the stability of the empire encouraged long-distance trade unprecedented in the ancient world. Culturally, the empire was a melting pot where Roman, Greek, Egyptian, and local traditions blended into a rich and dynamic civilization. Religion during this period was equally diverse. The traditional Roman gods shared space with foreign deities and mystery cults imported from the East. Emperor worship became a central feature of political life, symbolizing loyalty to Rome itself. Yet within this vast religious landscape, a new faith was quietly spreading: Christianity. Initially viewed with suspicion and often persecuted, it would one day transform the empire from within. By the end of the 2nd century CE, the Roman Empire stood at its zenith. From the deserts of Arabia to the forests of Germania, From the coasts of Britannia to the banks of the Nile, Rome's legions guarded a world bound together by law, commerce, and culture. The Emperor Marcus Aurelius, philosopher and soldier, embodied the virtues of the old Roman spirit: discipline, wisdom, and a sense of duty to the state. Yet even he faced immense challenges: barbarian invasions, economic strain, and the first signs of internal decay. The glory of Rome had reached its height, but the forces that would one day bring about its fall were already beginning to stir beneath the surface.
The height of the Roman Empire, under the reign of Marcus Aurelius, marked not only the zenith of its territorial reach and cultural achievement, but also the beginning of subtle fractures that would eventually lead to its decline. After centuries of conquest, prosperity, and relative stability, the empire began to face challenges that no emperor, no matter how wise or powerful, could completely overcome. The prosperity of the Pax Romana had masked deep-rooted weaknesses within the empire's political, economic, and social structures. As the 2nd century came to an end, these weaknesses began to reveal themselves with increasing intensity, signaling the start of Rome's long and painful descent. The death of Marcus Aurelius in 180 CE symbolized the end of the era of the 5 good emperors. His son Commodus inherited an empire still strong but showing signs of strain. Unlike his father, Commodus lacked discipline, wisdom, and the sense of duty. He indulged in luxury, debauchery, and personal vanity, proclaiming himself the reincarnation of Hercules and participating in gladiatorial games. His erratic behavior and incompetence alienated both the Senate and the army, while corruption spread through the government. In 192 CE, Commodus was assassinated in a conspiracy involving members of his own household. His death plunged the empire into a year of chaos and civil war, known as the Year of the 5 Emperors, in which several generals competed for power. Eventually, Septimius Severus emerged victorious, establishing the Severan dynasty. Though Severus was an able soldier and administrator, his reign marked a significant shift in the nature of imperial rule, one increasingly reliant on military loyalty and coercion rather than civic virtue or senatorial cooperation. The growing dependence on the army for political legitimacy became one of the defining features of Rome's decline. Emperors were now made and unmade by their legions, and the once disciplined Roman military began to transform into a political tool. To secure the allegiance of soldiers, emperors lavished them with gifts, donatives, and privileges, draining the treasury. The empire's finances, already burdened by vast administrative costs, military expenditures, and declining agricultural productivity, began to collapse under the weight of inflation and devaluation of the currency. The once stable silver denarius was debased as emperors sought to stretch their resources, leading to economic instability throughout the empire. The 3rd century was a time of unprecedented turmoil for Rome, often referred to as the crisis of the 3rd century. Between 235 and 284 CE, the empire experienced a period of near constant civil war, foreign invasion, and economic collapse. In this 50-year span, more than 20 emperors rose and fell, most of them meeting violent ends at the hands of their rivals or mutinous troops. The frontiers of the empire, once secure, began to crumble under pressure from external enemies. Along the Rhine and Danube, Germanic tribes such as the Goths, Vandals, and Franks launched repeated invasions into Roman territory. In the east, the Persian Sassanid Empire re-emerged as a formidable power, inflicting devastating defeats on Roman armies and even capturing the Emperor Valerian in 260 CE. The humiliation of a Roman emperor being taken prisoner was a blow to imperial prestige and symbolized the empire's waning might. As if external threats were not enough, internal fragmentation worsened the crisis. Regional commanders, frustrated by the weakness of central authority, declared themselves emperors, dividing the empire into rival states. The most notable of these was the Gallic Empire in the west and the Palmyrian Empire in the east. each functioning independently for a time. The central government's inability to assert control over its vast territories revealed the logistical and administrative limitations of the empire. Trade routes were disrupted by war, agriculture declined, and cities began to shrink as famine, disease, and insecurity spread. The once bustling urban centers of the empire started to decay, their populations fleeing to the countryside for safety. During this period of despair, one emperor managed to restore a semblance of unity and order. Aurelian, who reigned from 270 to 275 CE, reconquered the breakaway provinces, earning the title Restitutor Orbis, restorer of the world. He fortified Rome's defenses, recognizing the vulnerability of even the capital to barbarian incursions, and began rebuilding the empire's morale. His reign demonstrated that capable leadership could still temporarily reverse the tide of decline. Yet Aurelian, like many of his predecessors, was assassinated by his own soldiers, a grim reminder of the empire's political instability. The true turning point came with the rise of Diocletian in 284 CE. A soldier of humble origin, Diocletian possessed both the ruthlessness and administrative genius necessary to rescue the empire from disintegration. Realizing that the empire was too vast to be governed by one man, he instituted the Tetrarchy, a system dividing the empire into eastern and western halves, each ruled by an Augustus and a subordinate Caesar. This system aimed to ensure smoother succession and more effective governance. Diocletian also embarked on sweeping economic and administrative reforms. He reorganized the provinces, standardized taxation, and sought to curb inflation by issuing the Edict on Maximum Prices, which fixed wages and prices for goods throughout the empire. Although the edict ultimately failed, it demonstrated the government's desperate attempts to regain control over a collapsing economy. Diocletian's reign also marked a significant transformation in the nature of imperial authority. The emperor was no longer a mere princeps or first citizen as in the early empire. He now styled himself as Dominus et Deus, Lord and God. The imperial court adopted elaborate rituals inspired by Eastern monarchies, emphasizing the divine status of the emperor. This shift reflected both the growing autocracy of the regime and the empire's cultural evolution toward a more hierarchical, bureaucratic society. While Diocletian succeeded in restoring stability, his reign also highlighted the empire's dependence on centralized control and coercion. When he abdicated in 305 CE, the fragile balance he had created soon unraveled, leading once again to civil war.
Out of this chaos emerged one of the most consequential figures in Roman history, Constantine the Great. Rising to power after a series of bloody conflicts, Constantine reunited the empire under his sole rule in 324 CE. His reign transformed the Roman world in ways that would shape the course of European civilization for centuries. Constantine recognized that the center of gravity of the empire had shifted eastward, toward the wealthier and more defensible provinces. In 330 CE, he founded a new capital on the site of the ancient city of Byzantium, naming it Constantinople. Strategically located between Europe and Asia, the new city symbolized both continuity with Rome's imperial legacy and the beginning of a new era. Constantine's most enduring legacy, however, was his relationship with Christianity. For centuries, Christians had been a persecuted minority within the empire, often scapegoated for natural disasters and accused of undermining traditional Roman values. Constantine's conversion to Christianity, traditionally dated to the eve of the Battle of the Milvian Bridge in 312 CE, marked a turning point in world history. He attributed his victory to the Christian God and issued the Edict of Milan in 313 CE, granting religious tolerance throughout the empire. This unprecedented act ended the cycle of persecution and allowed Christianity to flourish openly. Under Constantine and his successors, Christianity evolved from a marginal sect into the dominant faith of the empire, fundamentally reshaping its cultural and spiritual identity. While Constantine's reign brought stability and religious transformation, it also revealed new challenges. The establishment of Constantinople further divided the empire between East and West. The eastern provinces, wealthier and more urbanized, began to diverge culturally and economically from the West. As the 4th century progressed, the Western Roman Empire faced growing difficulties maintaining its defenses and infrastructure. Barbarian pressure along the frontiers intensified, while internal corruption and administrative inefficiency drained resources. The economy of the Western Empire, heavily reliant on agricultural production and slave labor, struggled to sustain the demands of its bureaucracy and army. The late Roman military was no longer the disciplined citizen army that had once conquered the Mediterranean world. Increasingly, the empire relied on barbarian mercenaries, Goths, Vandals, and other Germanic peoples, to defend its borders. While these federates provided short-term relief, they also introduced instability, as their loyalty often lay with their tribal leaders rather than the emperor. In 378 CE, the Battle of Adrianople demonstrated the catastrophic consequences of this reliance. The Gothic forces, angered by mistreatment and corruption among Roman officials, revolted and annihilated a Roman army led by Emperor Valens. The defeat shocked the empire, revealing that the Roman military machine was no longer invincible. It marked the beginning of an irreversible power shift, as barbarian groups increasingly carved out territories within the empire's borders.
Meanwhile, the spread of Christianity continued to transform Roman society. The old pagan institutions that had once bound the empire together began to fade. Temples were closed or converted into churches, and the traditional rituals that had symbolized loyalty to Rome were replaced by Christian practices. The moral and cultural fabric of the empire underwent profound change. For some, Christianity offered hope and unity in an age of uncertainty. For others, it represented a departure from the old Roman virtues that had once sustained the empire's greatness. By the end of the 4th century, Emperor Theodosius I made Christianity the official state religion, banning pagan worship entirely. The shift was both spiritual and political, as the church became a central institution within the empire, wielding influence that would outlast Rome itself. The division of the empire after Theodosius's death in 395 CE formalized what had long been apparent. The eastern and western halves were now distinct entities. The Eastern Empire, governed from Constantinople, remained relatively stable and prosperous, benefiting from strong leadership and a strategic position along major trade routes. The Western Empire, centered on Rome and later Ravenna, faced a far bleaker reality. Successive invasions by barbarian tribes, Visigoths, Vandals, Huns, and others, ravaged its territories. The imperial government, weakened by internal strife and corruption, proved incapable of mounting an effective defense. In 410 CE, the unthinkable happened. Rome itself was sacked by the Visigothic king Alaric. For the first time in nearly 800 years, the Eternal City had fallen to a foreign enemy. The shock of this event reverberated across the empire, symbolizing the decline of Roman power and the vulnerability of even its most sacred heart. Although the empire continued to exist in name, the western provinces were gradually slipping away. Britain was abandoned, Gaul fragmented under local warlords, and North Africa fell under the control of the Vandals. The imperial court, increasingly isolated and powerless, relied on diplomacy and tribute to appease the invaders. The army, now composed largely of non-Roman soldiers, lacked the discipline and unity of earlier centuries. The emperors of the West were often figureheads, manipulated by generals or barbarian kings. Meanwhile, the Eastern Empire, under strong rulers like Theodosius II and later Justinian, would endure, preserving much of the Roman legacy in the Byzantine form.
By the mid-5th century, the Western Empire was a shadow of its former self. Economic collapse, demographic decline, and political fragmentation had eroded the foundations of Roman society. Cities that had once been centers of culture and trade now lay in ruins. Roads and aqueducts fell into disrepair, and literacy declined as education and administration broke down. The spirit of the old Roman world, its discipline, civic pride, and sense of destiny, had faded into memory. Yet, even in decline, the empire retained a certain majesty, its institutions and laws continuing to influence the emerging barbarian kingdoms that would succeed it. The final blow came in 476 CE, when the Germanic general Odoacer deposed the last Western Roman emperor, Romulus Augustulus. The act was largely symbolic. Real power had long since shifted away from Rome. Still, historians mark this date as the end of the Western Roman Empire and the beginning of the Middle Ages. The city that had once ruled the known world was now a relic, its glory preserved only in ruins and in the collective memory of civilization. Yet the Eastern Roman Empire, or Byzantine Empire as it would later be known, continued to thrive for another 1,000 years, carrying forward the legacy of Roman governance, law, and culture. The fall of the Western Empire was not a sudden catastrophe, but the culmination of centuries of gradual decay. The combination of economic decline, military weakness, political corruption, and cultural transformation created a perfect storm that even the most capable leaders could not withstand. Rome's collapse was, in many ways, the inevitable result of its own success. The vastness of the empire, which had once been its greatest strength, became an unmanageable burden. The values that had built Rome, discipline, unity, and civic responsibility, eroded under the pressures of luxury, ambition, and complacency. Yet, even as the empire crumbled, its influence persisted, shaping the world that came after it.
The decline of the Roman Empire was not the result of a single event, but rather a slow and complex process that unfolded over centuries, shaped by economic hardship, political corruption, military instability, and the relentless pressure of external invasions. By the late 2nd century, the golden age of Rome had begun to fade. The empire that once stretched from Britain to Mesopotamia now faced growing challenges in maintaining control over its vast territories. Communication was slow, borders were vulnerable, and the burden of defending such an enormous domain began to strain Rome's resources. The institutions that had once made Rome strong, discipline, unity, and loyalty, were now eroding under the weight of ambition, greed, and discontent. Emperor Marcus Aurelius, often remembered as the Philosopher King, ruled during a period that historians later called the last days of the Pax Romana, the long era of relative peace and stability across the empire. Marcus Aurelius was wise, just, and introspective, but his reign was troubled by constant wars along the frontiers and the devastating Antonine Plague, which wiped out millions of citizens. When he died in 180 CE, he broke the long-standing Roman principle of adopting a capable successor and instead left the throne to his son, Commodus. This decision would mark a turning point in Roman history. Commodus, unlike his father, was cruel, arrogant, and reckless. His obsession with personal glory and his disregard for governance plunged Rome into chaos. His assassination in 192 CE ended the Antonine dynasty and sparked a period of civil war known as the Year of the Five Emperors, as various military leaders vied for control of the empire. Out of this turmoil emerged Septimius Severus, founder of the Severan dynasty, who attempted to restore stability by strengthening the army and centralizing authority. Yet his policies, while successful in the short term, laid the groundwork for future problems. By increasing soldiers' pay and granting them political influence, Severus made the military the most powerful institution in the empire. This change meant that emperors now depended heavily on the loyalty of the legions, rather than the support of the Senate or the people. Over time, this militarization of politics led to a series of rapid successions, coups, and assassinations, as rival generals used their armies to seize the throne. The 3rd century became a time of constant upheaval, known as the Crisis of the 3rd Century,
when Rome nearly collapsed under the combined weight of internal strife and external threats. During this period, the empire faced invasions from multiple directions. Germanic tribes such as the Goths and Vandals crossed the northern frontiers, while the Sasanian Persians attacked from the east. Entire provinces were ravaged, cities destroyed, and trade routes disrupted. The economy, already weakened by over-reliance on slave labor and declining agricultural productivity, suffered even further. Inflation soared as emperors debased the currency by reducing the silver content in coins to pay their troops. Confidence in the government and the value of money eroded, and many citizens abandoned urban centers for rural life, weakening the empire's commercial and administrative backbone. For a time, it seemed that the Roman world would disintegrate entirely.
Yet, from this chaos rose a few strong and capable rulers who temporarily restored order. One of the most important was Emperor Diocletian, who came to power in 284 CE. Recognizing that the empire was too vast to be effectively governed by one man, Diocletian divided it into two parts, the Eastern and Western Roman empires, each ruled by an emperor and a junior co-emperor, known as a tetrarchy. This system brought temporary stability and administrative efficiency. Diocletian also implemented economic reforms, tried to control inflation through price edicts, and reorganized the military to better defend the frontiers. His reign, however, was also marked by one of the harshest persecutions of Christians in Roman history, as he viewed the growing Christian faith as a threat to traditional Roman unity and values. After Diocletian's retirement, civil war once again erupted among his successors. Out of the conflict emerged one of the most influential figures in world history, Constantine the Great. In 312 CE, Constantine claimed victory at the Battle of the Milvian Bridge, reportedly inspired by a vision of the Christian cross accompanied by the words, "In this sign, conquer." This event marked the beginning of a profound transformation within the Roman world. Constantine became the first Roman emperor to embrace Christianity, and in 313 CE, he issued the Edict of Milan, granting religious freedom to Christians throughout the empire. By doing so, he set in motion a cultural and spiritual shift that would change the course of Western civilization. Constantine also founded a new capital, Constantinople, modern-day Istanbul, strategically located on the Bosporus Strait between Europe and Asia. This new city became the heart of the Eastern Roman Empire and a symbol of renewal and strength. Despite Constantine's achievements, the empire's underlying problems persisted. The western half, centered in Rome, remained weaker than the east. Economic decline, corruption, and population loss continued to undermine its vitality. Successive emperors struggled to maintain authority, while barbarian invasions grew increasingly frequent and devastating. The Huns, a fierce nomadic people from Central Asia, began pushing westward, displacing other tribes such as the Goths and Vandals, who in turn sought refuge within Roman borders. The Roman military, now composed largely of mercenaries with little loyalty to Rome itself, could no longer repel these invasions effectively. The Battle of Adrianople in 378 CE, where the Roman army was decisively defeated by the Visigoths, exposed the empire's vulnerability and marked a fatal blow to its prestige. The final century of the Western Roman Empire was characterized by fragmentation and decline. In 410 CE, Rome itself, the Eternal City, was sacked by the Visigoths under King Alaric. The shock of this event reverberated throughout the ancient world. For centuries, Romans had believed their city to be invincible, the center of civilization protected by divine favor. Its fall symbolized the beginning of the end. Although the empire continued to exist in name, real power shifted to local warlords and provincial commanders who ruled their territories independently. The Vandals captured North Africa, one of Rome's most vital provinces, while the Ostrogoths and other tribes carved out kingdoms in former Roman lands.
In 476 CE, the last Roman emperor of the West, Romulus Augustulus, was deposed by the Germanic leader Odoacer, an event traditionally regarded as the fall of the Western Roman Empire. However, the Eastern Roman Empire, centered in Constantinople, continued to thrive for nearly 1,000 years more,
preserving much of Roman law, culture, and administration. Known later as the Byzantine Empire, it became a beacon of learning, art, and Christianity during the Middle Ages. The Byzantine emperors saw themselves as the true heirs of Rome, and their capital, with its grand Hagia Sophia, fortified walls, and bustling trade, stood as a reminder of what the Roman world had once been. It was not until 1453, when the Ottoman Turks conquered Constantinople, that the last vestige of the Roman Empire finally disappeared. The fall of Rome has fascinated historians for centuries, and many have debated its causes. Some attribute it to moral decay, arguing that the Romans lost their discipline and civic virtue. Others emphasize economic decline, political corruption, or overexpansion. Still others point to the relentless barbarian invasions as the decisive factor. In truth, the collapse of such a vast and complex system cannot be explained by a single reason. It was the result of a combination of internal weaknesses and external pressures that gradually eroded Rome's ability to sustain itself. Yet even in decline, Rome's influence endured. The very peoples who conquered it adopted its language, laws, religion, and culture, blending them with their own traditions. Latin became the foundation of the Romance languages: Italian, French, Spanish, Portuguese, and Romanian. Roman law continued to shape European legal systems, and the Christian Church, which had once been persecuted, became the most powerful institution in medieval Europe. The legacy of the Roman Empire extends far beyond its borders and centuries. Its architectural innovations, roads, aqueducts, amphitheaters, and monumental buildings set standards that would influence urban design for millennia. Its literature and philosophy continue to inspire scholars and thinkers. The Roman ideal of citizenship, with its emphasis on duty, service, and civic responsibility, became the cornerstone of Western political thought. Even modern republics, such as the United States and France, drew upon Roman models when designing their governments. The Latin phrase Senatus Populesque Romanus, meaning the Senate and people of Rome, symbolized the enduring partnership between the state and its citizens, a concept that resonates in democratic systems today. Moreover, the Roman Empire's story serves as a profound lesson about the rise and fall of civilizations. It reminds humanity that no power, no matter how mighty, is immune to decline. Empires flourish when they uphold justice, innovation, and unity, but they falter when corruption, greed, and complacency take hold. Rome's fall did not mark the end of civilization, but rather its transformation. The remnants of Rome evolved into the kingdoms and cultures of medieval Europe, carrying forward its spirit of governance, art, and law. The Renaissance, many centuries later, would rekindle the Roman ideals of beauty, knowledge, and human potential, bridging the ancient and modern worlds.
In the grand sweep of history, Rome stands as both a triumph and a warning. It demonstrated the heights humanity can reach through discipline, ambition, and creativity, and the depths it can fall to when power becomes unrestrained and principles are forgotten. Though the marble columns of its forums have crumbled and its emperors have long vanished, the essence of Rome lives on in our languages, our institutions, our architecture, and our dreams of greatness. The Roman Empire, once a small settlement by the Tiber, became the foundation upon which Western civilization was built, and even after its fall, its light continued to illuminate the world.
you.